Okay, last test in this book, reading passage 1, History of Glass. Let's see what we've got. Immediately I can see this is very, very nice, and of course some true false not given. This is probably the most common format for reading 1, some gap fill and true false not given. Alright, let's take a look. Immediately I can see this is very nice. I've got some wonderful things that I can scan for here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause this video and I'm going to highlight them all because by now you know what to do. Just scan for all of these, find all of these. So if you haven't done it yet, pause the video, scan and highlight, and we'll take a look when you come back. Okay, so these are the things that I scanned for. Please notice, usually you must really notice that this is important, but in this example it's not, because it's exactly the same as the title of the whole passage. So just take a look at these. These are all of the things I scanned for, and this is where they all were. We can see that it went all the way up to here. A couple of things to point out. Be careful. This was BC, 1st century BC. They had BC there, but they also had 1st century AD there, which is completely different. So don't highlight that. That's not where the answer is. Another thing to notice is this, the 17th century. We don't see it exactly like that. The 17th century is this part over here. So just, I've seen this done before, IELTS tests that you know what 17th century, 18th century means. 17th century will start with a 16. 18th century will start with a 17, and so on. Same thing over there. There's two over here. Both of these are mid-19th century, so it could be either of them. But Britain was there. So I'm going to focus on this. Okay, let's get started. What do we do next? We're going to decide nouns, verbs, adjectives, and if they're nouns, single, plural, countable, uncountable. A material, please notice, as we've seen in previous readings, this word called again becomes important. So we're going to look for a new word here. In the last reading, I spoke a lot about new words and their definitions. It's going to be the name of something, so it's going to be a noun. Material usually is an uncountable noun, but don't worry too much about that because you probably won't know what this word means. It's going to be a new word. We'll come back to that. Make sharp points of there. So it's something belonging to them. That's going to be a noun. But please notice, here is a plural, here is a plural. So this must be countable. So that helps us a lot. We're looking for a word that ends with an S. This is countable. Next, something made of stone were covered in a coating of man-made glass. Again, all we really know is that it's a noun, but then there's something very important to notice here, which is that this is were, it's not was. If this was, this would be singular, but this is were, so this is plural, countable. If it was, it could be singular or uncountable, but because it's were, we know that it's plural, countable. Again, it's going to end with an S, helps us a lot. Colored because of the something in the material. This can be anything. It can be plural or singular, countable or uncountable. The word the doesn't help us. And an help us, but the doesn't. So we just know that it's a noun. Only the something knew how to make glass. Now this is, you're not looking at grammar, you're looking at the meaning. Knew how to make glass. What or who knows how to make glass? Only people know how to make glass. This can't be a tree, it can't be a table, it can't be an animal. So we're looking for a noun, but some kind of people. It could be singular, but I'm sure it's people. I'm sure it's plural. Not only one person knew how to make glass. Right, we don't need anything there. Again, using something, plural, countable, or uncountable, to avoid the occurrence of, and again, noun. Could be anything, but it won't be singular. Glass changes to laws about and noun. Plural or uncountable. So I'll just put plural, uncountable in all of these. Great. Now let's look at this. We're looking for a new term and its definition. Let's go and look for it. I'm just going to call up the last reading that we did, because I want to show you, remind you about the structure that I spoke about when they introduce a new term and it's a definition. They introduce the new term, dash, there's the definition, dash. And IELTS chose that as an answer, if you can remember, it was one of the answers. Again, a new term, dash, definition, dash. And IELTS chose that as one of the answers. So IELTS loves this structure. Let's look in our current paper. Can you see that structure? We've got earliest over there, and there it is right there. New term, dash, definition, dash. IELTS sometimes will ask questions from here, from the definition, but often they ask about that term. So there's our new term. It's a type of natural glass. What do they say here? A material called a type of natural glass, and it's the new term. So quite quickly we can see that that is our answer. Again, please, new terms and their definitions, I'll say it 1,000 times. Right, sharp points of there. We're looking for a plural countable noun. And 4000 BC, somewhere before the 4000 BC. This is reading 1, so they won't change the order at all. So before this sentence, after that answer, somewhere there, we're looking for a countable noun. What do we see? We see a countable noun there and a countable noun there. Tips and spears. That means tips. So the only other possible answer then is spears. The sharp points of their spears. Great. Something made of stone were covered in a coating of man-made glass. Students always get this one wrong. I think the grammar confuses them. Often when IELTS makes these note-taking questions, or the table questions, they make it shorter. And one thing we do in English when we try and make something shorter is we cut out the which and we cut out the to be of the passive. You see, this is a passive structure. In these notes and in the table, very often they delete that. So this is what this sentence actually means. What was made of stone? You need to know what this is. My table is made of wood. A bottle is made of glass. So what were the things that were made of stone? Probably countable, because we've got were over there. We're in that sentence over there. Where's our countable nouns? Plural nouns. There's one there, and there's one there. Students then often choose this one. Glaze is made of stone, but it's not. It's this. This structure means the beads were made of stone. I'll say a glass bottle. It means the bottle was made of glass. A paper book. The book is made of paper. So the beads were made of stone, not the glazes. Again, notice the most important thing there to notice is this were told us that it was plural. So that gave us only two options. Right, the glass was colored because of the something in the material. Notice this one, it wasn't this sentence, it was the next sentence. Very, very common. It's not always the sentence with the keyword. Very often it's the next sentence. And it's quite simple. Was colored due to means because of the impurities in the material. So very straightforward. Was highly colored, was colored because of, and in the material. That's the only real possibility here. Okay, we're looking at something up until. Please notice that. It means until. That means before and including, not after. Often with true, false, not given, IELTS likes to test this word. So we're looking for some kind of people around there, 476 AD, before 476 AD. Again, we have our friend over there. That tells us this is very important. So until the empire collapsed in 476 AD, and then this is all after 476 AD, so we want something before. However, introduces the important word. Guarded their skills very closely means only. IELTS loves this word as well, only. Only these people knew how to make glass. The however tells you they guarded it very closely. That means only they knew how to make it. But the important thing here, IELTS is testing the reference pronoun. Who is they? Who are they? And right there is the people. Great. We don't need to look at that. He developed a process using something to avoid the occurrence of something in the blown glass. Now what they've done here, made it slightly difficult. They've changed the order, and they can do that. Inside a question, they can change the order. They won't change the order of the questions, but inside they can change the order. So, an important thing here is avoid. Can you see avoid? It's difficult language. That means avoid. Counter the effect of, avoid the effect of. But maybe it would be easier to find this one first. Avoid the occurrence of in blown glass. What are we trying to avoid? But it might be easier to do this one first, because this gives you a clue. I want you to notice this is an ing word, and it's quite possible then, not always, but possible, that you will be looking for an ing word in the text. And that is it over there. Using, introducing, it's close enough. So what did he introduce? Lead. What is lead? You should know all of these words. It's called elements. And it's things like hydrogen, helium, carbon, gold, silver, oxygen, copper. You should try and learn the most common ones of those. Learn about 20 of them. Lead is Pb. Maybe you can go and look it up. It's a good one to know. It's good vocabulary. And what did he want to avoid? What did he want to avoid? We're not looking for singular. We're looking for plural or uncountable. For this one, really, you needed to see that this was avoid. He wanted to avoid. And that's what he wanted to avoid. That one was slightly difficult. It was based on a vocabulary. And then finally, this one was probably the most difficult one. Laws concerning something. So, plural or uncountable. What did they change? The production developed after that. Started to develop after. There we go. The repeal of the Excise Act. Whoa, difficult. Before that time, heavy taxes had been placed. So, really, it's a very difficult one. This is the change, the word for changes that they made. But what were the changes about? They changed this thing, but what were the changes about? And that is what the changes were about. It is a countable, like we were looking for, countable plural, and there's nothing else really there that tells us what these changes were about. So you had to take a guess with this one, I know, if you're going for band 6, but we were looking for a plural or a countable, and I can't see any other plurals or countables in here. I mean, glass is an uncountable. Now, we're looking for plurals or uncountable. Glass is an uncountable, but of course, that's not going to be the answer. This is the only real possibility in terms of nouns and countables. So even if you didn't understand all of this, the grammar could have helped you. All right, so a nice, easy one to start off with. I think you could get 7 out of 8 there quite easily. Let's move on to the true, false, not given. Right, true, false, not given. This true, false, not given is quite good practice for really focusing in on the target language and practicing ignoring the things that they're not going to be asking about. Let's take a look. In 1997, he had the fastest bottle producing machine that existed at the time. Can you see what the target language is? What is your circle word? That is it over there. This is really the way for you to get a handle on these true, false, not givens, is to be able to focus in what is IELTS testing. They're not going to test this. They're not going to test this. This is what they're testing. In this next one, it's a bit more difficult. Sometimes the focus language is not clear. I would guess that it's this. Was he hired or was he not hired? That's all. There's nothing about bigger, smaller, faster, slower, earlier, later in this. So I'm thinking it was just this. Was he hired? Was he not hired? This one will be more difficult, I'm guessing. Right, next one. Most glass produced by large international manufacturers. Don't worry about that. I don't think that they're going to do that. Anyway, if you go and look in the text, that's over there. I'll talk about that a bit later. So it's really not. It's this word. IELTS, in true, false, not given, IELTS loves to focus on this word. Most, because most means more than 50%, and they always compare it with many and most, and test that students know the difference between many and most. So that is definitely our circle word. Next one, quite easy to see, increased. Is it increased demand or decreased demand? So I hope you're starting to see that with a bit of practice, it becomes quite easy to recognize what IELTS is testing. Up, down, left, right, increase, decrease, more, most, that sort of thing. And we can see quite clearly here, what is our circle word? More expensive. Is it more expensive or is it less expensive? Right, that's great. That's what they're going to focus on. I'm a bit worried about number 10. I think it might be a bit more difficult, but these ones I'm quite happy about. Let's take a look. 1887. All right, do all of your scanning. I'm not going to do it for you just to save some time, but scan for that, scan for Michael Owens, scan for nowadays, very important, recycled glass, etc., etc. I'll leave you to do that. Let's go to 1887. In 1887, this person had the fastest bottle producing machine that existed at the time. Was it the fastest or was it not the fastest, or we don't know? And the key phrase is, okay, there's 1887. We're looking at this is one whole big sentence here. Can you see something about fastest? There it is, quick, fast, same thing. So it was more than 3 times faster than any previous production method. Very important word there, any. So it means it was the fastest. There was no other one which was faster. It was faster than that. Maybe we can say all. It can be, in this sentence, it can be all methods. So it was the fastest because it was faster than all. Great. That means that's definitely true. Yes, it was the fastest. Was he hired? Was he not hired? Here is Michael Owens. And now you've got to look, was he hired by a big company or was he not hired? This word means he was the person who started the company. He was the big boss. So it's definitely not true. He wasn't hired by a company. He was the company. Some people can argue this should be not given. IELTS says it's false. Because maybe some other company hired him. We don't know. So it's a difficult question. I don't think it's very clear. IELTS says the answer is false. I tend to agree. It's just common sense. Yes, technically you can argue some other company might have hired him, but he owned the company, so he was not hired by the company. Don't worry if you get that one wrong. I think many people can argue about that one. Right. Now, IELTS loves this. I've seen this kind of question so often. Most compared to many. Please find that. That's very important. Most glass is produced by these international companies. There is the nowadays, very important. Where's the international companies? Maybe there. But what IELTS is actually testing here is in this sentence. The modern glass plants is the big international companies, and that is what they're testing. Millions. They're comparing most with millions. What they mean here is many, 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 many. A big number. But is it most? Most and many are different. Many is just a lot. Most means more than 50%, more than half. We don't know if millions is more than half. We don't know what the total is. So we don't know if it's more than 50%. We know it's a lot, but we don't know how much it is compared to the total. So that's why this is not given. They compared most with many, and those are two very different things, so we don't know. Please notice that. IELTS loves that kind of question. Right, next. Is the demand increasing, or is the demand decreasing, or we don't know? So you would have scanned something about environment. Important paraphrase here, green issues. Green is often used as a synonym for environment. So there's our word for environment. These jars are becoming ever more popular. More popular, demand increasing. More increasing, fine. So they're the same. That's an easy true. Demand is an important word. Make sure you know it. And finally, is it more expensive? Is it less expensive? Don't we know? Please notice the order. They could maybe change the order of this to try and confuse you. I doubt they will, but which one is more expensive? Which one is less expensive? And your answer is here. Less energy is needed. Because less energy is needed, it saves costs. So we save cost. It means the costs go down because it's less energy is needed. So it's not more expensive, it's less expensive. We save costs. Not more expensive, less expensive, save costs. So the key on this whole thing that I just wanted you to point out is learn to recognize what IELTS is testing. You can make yourself crazy checking every single word. We don't have time for that. You need to quickly go in and see what's IELTS testing, find that one in the text, and then it becomes quite easy. All right, that's the end of that. Not a difficult test. You can get 4 here, you can get 7 here, maybe 11 out of 13 is a good score for this. 10, 11 out of 13 for this, I think. Let's move on to reading 2.